All right, so Bitcoin. I mean, everyone's heard of Bitcoin by now, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of unavoidable.
Yeah, it's pretty much everywhere you look these days.
But have you ever, stopped and really thought about what makes it work? Like, the tech behind it. We're going to get into blockchain today, and this is where things get really, really interesting.
It really is the foundation of it all. Bitcoin wouldn't exist without this invention called blockchain.
Okay, so before we go any further, let's make sure everyone's on the same page. Let's think about digital stuff for a second. You've got a picture or a document, a song, whatever. You can just copy it, right?
Yeah.
It's easy. That's kind of the whole point of digital, right?
Right.
But imagine trying to make a digital currency, like actual money, where people could just copy their money.
Oh, it would be a disaster.
Total chaos.
Yeah, and that's the problem that Bitcoin had to solve, because at its heart, Bitcoin is really just digital information. It's numbers representing value.
So how do you make sure that someone can't just copy their Bitcoin and spend it twice? Like if you spend one, it needs to be gone,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. It has to be unique, and you have to know it hasn't been counterfeited. That's where blockchain comes in. It's the tech that underpins Bitcoin and makes it secure and unique.
Okay, so blockchain, that's the magic word. Let's break it down a bit.
Well, the name is actually pretty descriptive. It's a chain, literally a chain made of blocks. Each block holds a bunch of transactions, and all those transactions have been, verified.
Okay, I'm picturing this chain of blocks, but I'm not quite seeing how they're actually connected. What makes those links so secure?
So each new block that gets added to the chain is linked to the block before it and the block after it using what we call cryptographic keys. They're like incredibly complex digital fingerprints, like virtually impossible to break.
Okay, I see. So if someone tries to tamper with the information in a block, what happens?
It's like if you change even one tiny bit of information within a block, it's going to change the entire digital fingerprint. That immediately breaks the link in the chain, and everyone knows something's wrong.
So each block is like a tamper-proof container, basically, that's permanently sealed and links to the ones around it. That's starting to sound pretty secure already.
Right, but there's another part to this that makes it even more resilient.
Yeah, it's not just the chain itself, is it? What else is there?
It's also about where this chain is stored. So think about a typical database, like how your bank keeps track of your account.
Right.
It's all stored on their computers in one place.
So theoretically, someone could hack into those computers and get to everything.
Exactly, a single point of failure. Now, blockchain is completely different. Instead of being kept in one place, the entire blockchain, this whole chain, is copied and stored on hundreds of thousands of computers all over the world.
Wow. So it's not just one vulnerable server,
It's everywhere. It's a public, distributed ledger.
Okay, I think I get the basic idea, but can you give me an analogy to really wrap my head around this?
Okay, imagine a spreadsheet, like a really important spreadsheet with financial data or something. But instead of it being saved on just one hard drive, there are identical copies of that spreadsheet on tons of computers.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
Right, so now if someone wants to change something in that spreadsheet, like for their own benefit, they can't just change it on their own computer.
You'd have to change it on every single computer that has a copy.
Exactly, and they'd have to do it at basically the same time, otherwise the network would immediately flag the inconsistency.
That's insane. So that distribution is what makes it so secure, right?
Exactly. I mean, think about this. Bitcoin has been around since 2009, right? And there have been tons of attempts to hack the blockchain, but none have ever worked.
That's really impressive. Okay, so you mentioned that it's public, that anyone can have a copy of the blockchain and see the transaction history. How does that work with security?
You'd think that would make it less secure, right? But actually, it's the opposite. Because the blockchain is public, everyone can see what's happening. It's transparent. So if someone tries to sneak in a fake transaction or tamper with a block, everyone on the network would immediately see it.
So because everyone has a copy, it's like having millions of watchful eyes.
Exactly. They would instantly recognize the inconsistency and reject the change.
So to actually mess with the blockchain, what would someone have to do?
You'd have to control more than half of the entire network, what's called a 51% attack. You'd have to control a majority of the computers running the blockchain software and simultaneously alter the ledger on all of them.
That just sounds... I mean, is that even possible?
Given how many computers are running the network all over the world, it's practically impossible. It would take an insane amount of computing power and resources.
Okay, so the scale of this is just massive. Now, you mentioned seeing transactions. What exactly is visible and what's kept private? Because I know blockchain is often described as anonymous.
Right, so let's compare it to your bank account again. When you look at your statement, you can see who you sent money to, who paid you, all that. And that information is on the bank's servers. They control it.
A central authority.
Right. Blockchain is different. The transactions themselves are public. You can see the amount of Bitcoin being sent, the addresses of the digital wallets involved. There are even things called blockchain explorers, like blockchain.info, where you can actually go and see the entire transaction history.
Hold on, so I could go online right now and see every transaction that's ever happened on the Bitcoin blockchain.
Pretty much, yeah. You can see the amounts moving between wallets, and you can see the history of those wallets, all the transactions they've been involved in.
So it's totally transparent.
On that level, yes. But the thing that's not public is the real-world identity behind those wallets. You can see the wallet address, this string of letters and numbers, but you don't know who owns that wallet unless they choose to reveal their identity.
Ah, so you can see what's happening, but not necessarily who's doing it. That makes sense. So what about undoing a transaction? If you send Bitcoin to the wrong address, is there any way to get it back?
That's another key thing about blockchain. It's pretty much irreversible. Once a transaction gets included in a block, and that block is confirmed through all those cryptographic processes, it's permanent.
Oh, wow. So there's no taking it back, no undo button.
Nope. And this, combined with the distributed nature of it all, means that you don't need a central authority like a bank to establish trust. The technology itself creates the trust because the record is permanent and anyone can verify it.
That's a big shift. But I know we've been talking a lot about Bitcoin, which is what most people think of when they hear blockchain. But the sources we looked at say that blockchain can be used for so much more than just cryptocurrency.
Oh, absolutely. Bitcoin was just the first big application, but the underlying principle of blockchain, this secure, transparent, and permanent record-keeping, it can be used in tons of different ways.
So what are some other examples?
Well, one that's really interesting is land registries. Imagine a world where property ownership is tracked on a blockchain.
That's a huge deal.
It would solve a lot of problems. Think about how land registries work now. They're centralized, often paper-based, which makes them, prone to errors, disputes, even fraud.
I see, yeah.
If you put it all on a blockchain, every transaction, every sale, inheritance, whatever, it's all recorded permanently and transparently. No one can argue about who owns what because the record is right there.
So this could really cut down on property disputes, especially in places where land ownership records aren't very reliable.
Absolutely.
What about other examples? I know we saw something about car registries.
Yeah, that's another great one. Think about if we had a blockchain-based vehicle registry. You could track the entire history of a car from its manufacturer through all its owners, any accidents, repairs, everything.
So you could know for sure if a used car had been in an accident, even if the seller didn't tell you.
Exactly. It would make buying and selling cars so much more transparent, and it would cut down on fraud.
That would be huge for consumers. And I know we also saw something about stock exchanges exploring blockchain.
Yeah, the potential there is massive. Think about how stock exchanges work now. It's a very complicated process with lots of intermediaries, and it can take time to settle trades.
And I guess that leaves room for errors or even, manipulation.
Exactly. With blockchain, you could create a shared, immutable record of all the trades. It could make everything faster, more efficient, and way more secure. Our sources actually said that some stock exchanges are already looking into using blockchain.
So we're talking about everything from money to land to stocks. Is there anything blockchain can't do? It seems like any system that relies on secure and transparent records could benefit from this.
It's a pretty fundamental technology. The big thing here is that blockchain is the first time we've had a way to create truly non-duplicable digital information without relying on some kind of central authority. That's never existed before.
It really does feel like we're just scratching the surface of what's possible here.
It's really exciting to think about what the future holds for this technology.
So let's sum up everything we've talked about today. We started with Bitcoin, this digital currency that everyone's talking about, and then we dug deeper into the tech behind it, blockchain. We talked about how it's this chain of blocks all linked together with these unbreakable cryptographic keys, and that its security comes from the fact that it's distributed across a huge network of computers and that it's publicly visible so everyone can see what's happening.
And how it combines transparent transactions with anonymous users, and of course all those other applications beyond cryptocurrency, like land registries, car registries, stock exchanges, all sorts of possibilities.
Right, so much more than just Bitcoin. It really is about rethinking how we manage important information in this digital world.
Trust, but built on technology.
Exactly. So to wrap up, I want to leave you with a thought experiment. Imagine a world where everything important, like property titles, voting records, medical histories, everything, is stored on a blockchain. What would that world look like? How would it change the way we live and interact? What new possibilities and challenges would it bring?
It really is a fascinating thing to consider. And while we've tried to make this as clear and easy to understand as possible today, there's a whole lot more to learn about the technical details for anyone who's interested in really getting into the nitty-gritty.
Absolutely. If this conversation piqued your curiosity, we encourage you to dig a little deeper, do some more research. Blockchain is a rapidly evolving field, and who knows what incredible applications we'll see in the future.
The future is definitely bright for this tech.
All right, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.